Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here. My name is Pierce and I'm the director of the Transnational Literature Series at Brookline Booksmith, just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and your host for tonight's conversation. The Transnational Series focuses on stories of migration, the intersection of politics and literature, and works in translation. I just want to offer a quick Zoom webinar tutorial. At the bottom of the screen you'll see a few icons. One of those is a Q&A icon where you can enter in your questions at any time during the conversation. Another button will get you to the chat window. That space is there for you all. Please feel free to chat during the event. I will be in the chat as well, dropping in useful information including links to books by our authors. We do make every effort to keep these events free to attend in the hopes that you'll purchase the featured books from us. So thank you in advance for taking a look and supporting independent bookstores. And finally, you can see us, but we can't see you, so relax and please enjoy the conversation. Tonight I have the very great honor and joy of introducing Zeina Hashem Beck and Carrie Fountain, here to discuss and celebrate the release of Zeina's new poetry collection, O. Zeina Hashem Beck is a Lebanese poet and the author of two previous full-length collections of poetry, Louder Than Hearts and To Live in Autumn, as well as two chapbooks, Arabic Song and There Was and How Much There Was. Educated in Arabic, English, and French, Zeina has a BA and an MA in English Literature from the American University of Beirut. She has won many awards, including the May Sarton New Hampshire Poetry Prize, the Rattle Chapbook Prize, the Backwaters Prize, and Poetry Magazine's Frederick Bach Prize, among others. Her work has appeared in The Atlantic, The Nation, The New York Times, World Literature Today, and elsewhere. Zeina is also known for her invention of the duet, a bilingual poetic form where English and Arabic exist separately and in relationship to each other. She's the co-creator and co-host of Masuda, a podcast about Arabic poetry. After a lifetime in Lebanon and a decade in Dubai, Zeina recently moved to California. And tonight's moderator, Carrie Fountain, is a poet and novelist and served as the 2019 Texas Poet Laureate. She is the author of three poetry collections, The Life, Instant Winner, and Burn Lake, which won the 2009 National Poetry Series Award, as well as the YA novel I'm Not Missing and her first children's book, The Poem Forest. Her poems have appeared in Tin House, Poetry, and The New Yorker, among many others. She is the host of This Is Just to Say, a radio show and podcast where she has intimate conversations on the writing life with other poets and writers. She is writer-in-residence at St. Edward's University and lives in Austin, Texas. I'm so thrilled to have them here together in conversation, and now Zeina and Carrie.
Hi.
Hi, hello, Zeina. Thank you so much, Pierce, for those lovely introductions and for having us. Zeina, I'm so thrilled and honored to be able to celebrate this book in your first event. Yes, is this your first book event for O?
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Pierce. Thank you, Brookline.
It's wonderful to be here, and I just want to say congratulations on such a beautiful collection of poems. I think this is like, this book to me kind of typifies the idea of a collection of poems. Like there's just a sort of, there's like a vast richness to the book, and it's like a journey, you know, traveling through it. And I was lucky enough to read this book many months ago, and then was able to, you know, be revisiting it this last week while I was on vacation with my family. And rereading these poems, I just felt like, oh, there's my friend again. Like I feel, we've never met each other, but I feel there's such an intimacy and generosity and depth and, you know, intellect to these poems. I just feel so, I feel lucky to be in conversation with you tonight, but I feel also lucky to be in conversation with these poems because they're so generous and wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm honored.
Well, I feel like we should set the stage with the poem.
Yes.
Yes. How about, would you like to read the poem Ode to the Afternoon?
Yes.
I love that poem.
I'd be happy to. Thank you. So this is a good poem to start with because it was the working title of the book for quite a while, and then I kind of got rid of everything else and just kept the O. The afternoon has always been a time that made me feel uneasy And later on, as I was writing, I came to relate the afternoon with being middle-aged and the aging body and illness, and learning kind of to love it and praise it. So this is Ode to the Afternoon. My friend tells me she's been running in the cemetery in the afternoon. She calls it just a garden, really. First, I am afraid, and then I am afraid. Everything is cemetery and garden. My late uncle's flower shop, my daughter learning to fold a paper into a boat, sea salt, marriage, dawn, old French music, this vertical line digging deeper into my forehead every morning, that bicycle in the city tied to a street post with flowers and a note to the girl who rode it. When I was a little girl, I wanted to bury the afternoon when longing was long and my parents slept and slept. I stood in the corridor and repeated, ay, 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 until I flickered in and out of myself. Some days I even threatened to fling my body from the balcony until my brother, with such calm, looked at me, dangling from the railing, my head thrown backward, and explained, "You don't own your soul. It belongs to God. Only He can decide." I stood in the corridor. I stood on the balcony. I stood in the desolate afternoon and repeated, because what is repetition if not a question? The way Mom every day with her hairdryer, with her grocery list, with her buying this shawl and that, is asking, what have I done? What have I done? The book says we will see clearly when the drunkenness of death descends. My uncle saw a man and a woman standing by his hospital window and asked his wife who they were. My father, with his prayer beads, with his cigarette, gestured to the driver, taking my uncle to his grave to circle back and pass by his flower shop. My father, with his few words, said, "One last time, so he." By he, my father meant both his brother and himself. My uncle taught me to sing. Que sera, sera, he said, say it. What will be, will be. I still dread the afternoon and still ask, will I be pretty? Will I be missed? And I still haven't been to his grave, but have driven past his flower shop again and again and again. The way on the night before he died, I drove beneath bridges and saw him on each one and waved.
Thank you. What a poem.
Thank you.
It's so hard to explain the experience of hearing you read that poem. Just in the way that hearing a poem performed is different than the experience of the poem on the page.
Yeah.
And I was really taken by how amazingly well constructed, like almost like a braid, the poem sort of comes together in the language and seems effortless in a way. It's so conversational. By he, I mean, you know, there's a sort of interjections and like the way that we speak, right? And I just feel like, that's just it's such a triumph. And I was interested because you mentioned that poem, Ode to the Afternoon, was for a while you said it was the working title.
Yeah.
And that you really feel like that poem kind of set the tone or kind of
the mood,
you know, for the rest of the collection. And I wonder if you could sort of talk about what it is.
I think to circle back to what you were saying about how things seem braided almost effortlessly so, I think this collection is a lot against unity, the way we might traditionally think about unity, you know, the logical, unified, maybe Western self, right? And the poems in there, just like Ode to the Afternoon, work with juxtaposition. I'm very interested with association, the way the brain associates, like how one thing could lead to another. Like the brain is such a beautiful thing, right? With connections we're not even remotely aware of. And poetry, for me, part of it is about opening up those connections, those associations, those juxtapositions. And so the way Ode to the Afternoon itself is structured by this kind of association juxtaposition helped set the tone for, like you said, the collection is almost about everything. It's not about one thing. It's not like I sat down and said, this is going, like, for example, the first collection, To Live in Autumn, was about Beirut. Like I knew this is a collection about my relationship to Beirut. This time it was more of, let's open it up and see what comes and work against unity. So this is one thing. Another thing, the tone, what I mean by the tone, I guess, is lyrical, prayerful, elegiac, but also celebratory. Mental illness is mentioned. Mortality is a preoccupation. Yeah, so a lot of themes that would later on show up again in the book are in this. Childhood, of course, memories are in this particular poem. So I feel that it kind of pushed me into that collection somehow.
And how did it feel to you writing in that way? If you're, I know that you were talking about your first book, but were you ready to sort of throw open the gates and write about everything, or did something change in your writing practice or your life that made you feel like, I don't want to write about one thing, I want to write about everything?
I think it wasn't a conscious choice at the beginning. Like later on, when I sat with most of these poems and then started writing more into the collection, it was then that I realized, well, what is this about really? And how am I going to organize that? How am I going to try and somehow to take the reader on this journey in this book? What kind of journey do I want the reader to take? So this comes later on, right? First, it was just me writing about whatever was resonating with me. And I think at this stage, I had written enough about cities as physical places. Like the first collection is about Beirut. The second collection has Beirut and Tripoli and a lot of Arab cities, and also my relationship to Arabic music and Arab singers. So it was almost looking from the inside to the outside, Is that what I'm saying? Yeah. It was like this, whereas this collection is kind of doing, and turning inward. And if cities exist, because of course they're going to exist, then they're only existing in connection to those memories and to being within the body itself. Yeah. Do you know?
Yes. I love that. It very much feels like that, experiencing this book. And I before used the term vastness to describe. And you mentioned some of the themes, and I was thinking a million more as you said as you were going through the list. But it's not only in terms of tone or subject matter or voice that is vast. There's also such a variety of kinds of poems here, right? There are odes, there are ghazals, there are these poems that you call triptychs.
Yes.
And then of course there is a form. Essentially, is it a form? Would you call it a form, the duets?
I guess. I kind of made it up. Poets like to make up stuff and call them forms, I guess.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know that all poets do that. I'm always like so blown away when a poet, you've like been given this it's like a gift that you've been given and that you're giving back to your readers. You're like, okay, this is I read an interview where you talked about your mind just wanting to do this and you not like just like not understanding and just letting your mind go to the place where you wrote these duets. So I wondered if you could, at the beginning of the poem, there's a note about the duets that's like that long, that kind of explains.
Yeah.
Could you kind of briefly explain? And then I wondered if you could read one.
Yes.
And then we can go back and sort of talk about the poem and the form on the other side, so that people can hear the poem.
Yes, absolutely. So the idea of the duets is that before I maybe used Arabic expressions or Arabic words within the collection and also kind of explained them. And so they were only parts, like they were only a word in an English poem or an expression in a poem in English, right? With the bilingual poems, Arabic is an equal partner to English. And the idea is they're not a translation of one another. So that if you only read English, you've got the English on this side of the page. And if you only read Arabic, you've got the Arabic here. But if you're bilingual like me, you could sort of go down and read across, and hopefully a third poem opens up in the space within this conversation, so that it's trying to emulate as much as possible what it means to exist at the intersection of those worlds and those languages, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the idea of the duets. And like you said, I think they came in spite of me. That I was thinking like, why is this coming in Arabic? And I think it was a moment in my life where I was going back to reading Arabic poetry, because I was working on the podcast Maqsuda, which is in Arabic, about Arabic poetry. So that it came from that practice of going back to reading in my mother tongue. So yeah, which duet would you like me to read?
Could you read the duet where the first word is blue?
Blue azraq.
Yes. Yeah.
Blue azraq. So azraq is actually blue in Arabic.
Okay.
So this is a duet that was solicited. It wasn't solicited as a duet, but a friend of mine emailed me. They were doing something like a radio, something about Beirut and being in Lebanon, and they wanted a poem from me. And it was about, the theme was the sea. So for me, this is an ode to the Mediterranean in Lebanon, be it Tripoli, my hometown, or Beirut, where I studied later on. And it's called Blue Azraq. نرى البحر ولا نراه إلا في المنام. A patch, a glimpse among the antennas أو من بين الأشرطة على الأسطح. How to brave this blue. لا بحر لنا هنا ولا قوة. Sometimes I forget the sea is this close. لنا حب قديم يريد أن يحفر لك في الإسمنت شاطئا. My love, I want to dig a beach for you out of this cement. لنا مطر محمل تارة بعطش الأرض وتارة بعفن الشارع. Oh, old faith and new. Oh, time of wells and time of satellite dishes. لنا الحر والرقص على ظهور المباني. قد نرى بقعة بحر من هناك. Are the fish still edible? Our nets are full of plastic and trash. لنا كأس تجري فينا كنبع صغير ننسج فيه سماء وغروبا ونجوما وتراتيلا. My parents threw me in the sea when I was 2, and I floated. They called me little fish. My parents trusted the sea. إلهنا الأزرق لم نعد نعبده وما زلنا نحبه. Oh, blue God, we no longer worship but still love. لما لا نتذكر البحر إلا عندما تموت العصافير على الشرفات. Over breakfast, I had to convince a friend Beirut was still on the Mediterranean. لمن ندون أحلامنا كل صباح. Are you sure, he asked? Is it a deep, bluest blue. ما أجمل الموت بلا ضرائح. Yes, I said. No, I said. ارفعني على كتفيك قبل أن نحرق المدينة. Lift me on your shoulders, roll in the tires, light them up. Oh, city, we no longer love, but still worship. لقد أقسمنا أن نقلع عن عبادة هذه المدينة.
Oh, thank you for that. Wow, that was just such an experience to hear you read that poem. For those of us who don't have Arabic, it's such a different experience.
Yes.
Right, because you sort of, you're dreaming about those spaces as you're reading if you don't have access to that language. But to hear it, it's like, what you're saying, what you said earlier was so amazing about the space between the two languages, that it creates a third way of a third meaning.
Yeah.
I feel like even just kind of tonally, you can feel that even without knowing the Arabic. I just really adore those poems throughout the book, and I wondered if you could say a little bit more. Well, first of all, I'm interested that you said that this one was commissioned.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like a friend asked me, he said he was putting up something together, like a little magazine, radio, something. I forgot, it was a radio show, but also published somewhere, a friend from Beirut. And he said, could you write something about the Mediterranean, the sea? And I said, sure. And it only made sense that, of course, the Mediterranean, it has to be a duet. Like I was thinking, I was starting to write the duets then, and it sort of came as a duet as well. Mm-hmm. It made sense that the sea would kind of speak or be spoken about in those two languages,
You described those poems as having kind of, or enacting even like an intersection, and there's an intersectionality there.
Yes.
And not only in the form itself, those two, the intersection of those two languages, but even in the poem itself, there are these moments there's an intersection.
Yeah, like a sentence begins in English, continues in Arabic, right? Yeah, like you feel that, and it's at times it is that it begins in English and continues in Arabic, and the intersection between them is also sometimes a contradiction. So that, for example, in this particular duet, the last two lines are, "Oh, city, we no longer love but still worship."
Yes.
And then the Arabic line is لقد أقسمنا أن نقلع عن عبادة هذه المدينة, which kind of means like we have sworn we will no longer worship this city. So that in Arabic, that worship has stopped. And I feel like the duets made me realize that if you're writing about the same thing in a different language, your perception shifts, even if it's ever so slightly. Mm-hmm. And I discovered that perhaps I am a little harsher on the city in Arabic. I dare to be a little harsher on the city, and that not that I romanticize it in English, absolutely, or like I'm against romanticizing, but maybe a little bit more in English than, so it's almost like there's, like in English, there's a departure, and in Arabic, there's a return. Okay. So that in Arabic, we no longer worship the city. It's like we don't want to worship this goddamn city. We hate it, but in English, when you're away from it, in the language, but also physically, when you kind of look back and you say, but I miss it. And it's beautiful, right? So
does that have to, I know that you were educated in Arabic, English, and French, am I right?
So I was French educated first. Okay. So so I began French and English, and French and Arabic, and English was introduced in 6th grade is when we learned English. Yeah. But then I continued my university studies in English at the American University of Beirut. And this is when this complete switch kind of, because I existed for like 5 years doing my BA and MA, kind of working in English, writing in English, and kind of departed more and more from Arabic.
And is that still the case? Are there poems that come to you in Arabic that are
entirely in Arabic? Yes, I think very slowly. Yes, so that so first the duets came as this like almost shy return to Arabic, where it's like, no, I'm not going to write it all in Arabic. There's also going to be English with it because I'm not confident enough. And then the more I worked with Arabic and interacted with it, the more I wanted to only write in Arabic. And there were poems that were written and published only in Arabic. And then one of them, I translated it into English. So one of them was published in its English translation in The Nation. And it's called To a Friend Returning to Aleppo. And this isn't in O. This is like a new poem that I had written in Arabic and then translated in English. Like I don't know what's happening right now, but like it's fun.
Yeah. And you follow that. You follow wherever the poem wants to go, whatever. Yeah. That's really wonderful. I think
it's the only way. Like it's the only way to like follow, right?
Yes, right. Yes, absolutely. Or else end up stalled. So, yeah. First of all, I want to remind everyone that we're going to have time for questions at the end of this wonderful reading. And so if something comes to mind, even, during the event, please just like type it into the chat, because that would be great to keep the questions, or to have the questions coming in. I am so impressed in this book. By the way, I feel like it's very difficult to write about friendship. I think friendship is a difficult relationship to approach in poetry.
Yeah.
And you do so effortlessly. I mean, maybe that's why I feel like that about you, that like we're old friends or something, because you articulate friendship relationships so wonderfully. And I wondered if you could maybe read one of the poems that touch on that. The poem, "We're Young, We Are Beautiful."
Yes.
Would you read that?
I can see Ali Marola, hi, my editor, who said to me as we were we were working on this book, I love that friendship doesn't take a backseat to romantic love. And I really remember that comment from Ali, and it kind of emboldened me even more to trust those friendship poems. So thank you, Ali. Okay, so I wrote this when my childhood best friend that I grew up with, was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. We are young, we are beautiful. The square ceiling lights become faint windows on the clinic floor. The secretary answers the phone. Why do you need Valium? My friend was summoned and left me here, holding her cappuccino. We went dancing last night, though I had a stomach ache, but she insisted, get up, get up. We are young, we are beautiful. We sang. We filmed the disco ball, the strobes. The secretary reminds the woman on the line to pick up her meds on Monday. Don't be late, there's a small supply. I breathe in. The hollow flowers of the white wooden door weave in the sunlight. This cappuccino's getting cold. The brochures invite. Heard of multiple sclerosis? It's time you did. My friend dreamed of a shadow who asked her if she wanted to be healed. She told us last night in the car, then hoped the music in the club was good. It better be good, she warned. The secretary repeats, sorry, no more appointments today. The evacuation plan on the wall specifies 3, contain, close all doors behind you. My friend answered, yes, I want to be healed. The waiting room smells like strawberry chewing gum. The brochure explains autoimmune means response against self. Even in the dream, the miracle came with a condition, as miracles do, to take away 6 years from someone else. My friend refused. No. At the club, I searched for the toilets and she pointed, over there, here, I'll hold your bag. Are you okay? I didn't want to drink, but ended up with vodka anyway. There was blue light and the shadow pulled her by the arm that often goes numb. Is this a good omen? Some days you wake up not sleeping. Some days you don't. Being diagnosed as early as possible is very important. The secretary staples the papers. The nurse strokes the tree tattoo on his arm. As we leave, I try not to step on the squares of light on the floor. I want something more certain and less holy for now. We don't close the door behind us. My friend walks ahead of me and I ask her to, hey, slow down a little. She turns around. Let's go sit by the sea. I better throw this cappuccino. Don't you want to reincarnate? I tell her, no. And she says, well, I hope we come back as sisters.
Just beautiful.
Sorry.
Just beautiful. And I wonder if we could follow that poem up just so that we are all thoroughly destroyed and I'm not like crying alone here. Could you follow that with the poem? I'd love to just go straight from that poem on friendship to a poem about a different relationship, motherhood, and the experience of being a mother to a human being. And would you read the poem Time?
Yes, absolutely. This is the last poem I added. Can you hear something going? There's a poster on the wall going, okay, good. You can't hear it, great. Mm-mm. I put it down before the reading, but my husband put it back up. I don't know why he did that. Anyways, marriage. It's also in the book. All right. So this is the last poem I added to O. And I added it last because in August 2021, my young daughter Aya was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And this is about that. So this is another poem about illness also, I guess. And I see Naomi Shihab Nai. Hi, Naomi. She took this poem for poets.org. She chose it. Thank you. Time. Be kind to her. She's 11 and already wants to turn you back. She wished this after she squeezed a drop from her index and read me the number. She always insists I close my eyes and guess what her blood is saying. Sometimes I'm wrong and sometimes not. I kiss the tiny tears on her fingertips. I kiss her arms and thighs before the insulin. When I ask her to inject herself, I'm asking her to live without me, and she knows it. When her legs trembled and I soothed with, I'm here, she reminded me, but you can't do anything. Perhaps she meant undo. Who am I kidding? Time, I demanded your undoing too that first night in the hospital before dawn, when I woke up having forgotten, then remembered where I was, what had happened. The neon corridor light, the nurse's chatter, the potassium slow burn in my daughter's vein. Time, I know I can't reason with you. You go on and on. Instead, I'm wishing her astonishing slowness, softness inside the arduous and unfair. Like this, the dog's limp, the cold coffee, the struggling baby bougainvillea, the winged ant on the floor, the half-eaten sandwich, the tenderness of the 5 a.m. light, the daily departures, the basil plant's shadow on the wall, and her hair, the swing of my love's hair as she runs, shaking her head left and right, how she always ran like this, always ran as if swaying, no, no. Sorry, Carrie.
Can someone else take over? While I get myself together. No.
Oh, I see someone saying their child has type 1. Pierce, the child in my life has type 1 diabetes. Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
So it's interesting that Pierce mentions that she had never seen a poem like this before. And I feel like maybe I don't want to ask too personal a question, but I wonder if you shared that poem with your daughter.
I did. Not when I first wrote it, because I wrote it like in the midst of the adjustment period where everyone was kind of really not doing well. But when it was published, I showed her the website and I said, "Hey, look, Aya, this is a poem for you." And she read it and she kind of shrugged. And she's like, you don't kiss my arms and thighs. And I said, yes, I did. I kissed your arms and your thighs when you were first injecting yourself. She's like, no, you didn't. Typical. No, Mom, it's not true.
I love it.
I love that.
That's amazing. They really, it's yeah. I just love that. I love that response. The sort of like, no, I can find the one minor inaccuracy. And but yeah, I guess the rest of it is okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
that's so funny. Kids are so amazing, aren't they?
They are.
Well, I know that I'm watching the time like a hawk because I know that time is
time goes on and on.
Right. Be kind to us too, time. I was just wondering if you would talk a little bit about how you came to poetry to begin with. How did your journey with poetry begin?
I really think very, very early on, as a really young child, I was fascinated, like even when I didn't have the word poetry, I was just fascinated with language and languages, like different languages. Like I always said, oh, I also want to learn Italian and I also want to learn. So I loved learning languages. And I was fascinated with how, because I always, in the afternoon, when I was most frustrated and bored and my parents napped and sometimes they said, you should nap too. And I was like, I don't want to nap, So I would just get very, uneasy and want to create things. And I remember I used to tell my mom, I want to make things. And she would say like, make what? I would say things. And first it started with me like cutting up pieces of paper and coloring them and throwing them in a box. And I'm really bad with everything that has to do with the hands, like drawing, putting things together. I'm terrible. I think I must have figured that out at some point and said, well, words, you can make something with words, right? We can build something with words. And then at school, when they started teaching us poems in Arabic and English, it was like, whoa, I love this homework of memorizing poetry. Everyone hated it. I loved it, and I was actually the child who was taken like from class to class to class to recite poetry, because I would, like, no one told me you must perform it, but I performed it anyways. So for me, instinctually, this thing that's on the page that I'm only encountering now has to be read out loud right away. So I think it was immediate. It's just, it's instinctual. kind of finds you, but then whether or not you then develop it and you make it into like a career, and whether or not you decide to get published or not is a completely different ballgame, right? That comes later on.
I love what you're saying about the instinct to perform. And it just makes me again think about the difference between the difference between reading a poem on the page and hearing the poet perform the poem. There's different qualities to each experience.
Yep.
To recommend each experience, but hardly ever are they similar experiences, you know?
I agree.
And I definitely have felt that tonight, hearing you read your work, kind of further revelations. Just hearing these poems in your voice and hearing you perform them. They're just this, I feel like this reading is such a great kind of promotional event for your book, because I am here to say that we talked about so many, and we've heard so many different kinds of poems, but this is like, we've just scratched the surface. This book, it just, when I first read, I would sit down to read it, and I would say, like, I'm gonna, you know, my daughter's in the dentist, and I'll take it out and I'll read, you know, that's how I read books of poetry typically. And I would just be like, okay, well, could you just do some more x-rays or something? I'm reading a book of poems here and I'm not going to stop, you know? And so it's just been such a pleasure to hear them in your voice as well. And that there's just so much more in this book. Reading it, I just kept thinking, this is like, it's rare to come across a book that just offers so much, and a voice that offers so much of itself. And so thank you for that.
Thank you, Carrie.
And I know we have to move on to the Q&A. So I wondered if, as a closing poem, you would read the last poem in the book, which is titled Morning Prayer, which is a perfect title and a perfect poem to end the collection.
Yeah.
And our evening tonight. So
thank you. So the book begins with a poem called Ghazal with Prayer, and it ends with Morning Prayer. So it's kind of also going back to that circularity. I wrote this poem after having spent a weekend with my husband in a town in the south of Lebanon called Sur. In English, it's called Tyre, but in Arabic, it's Sur. And it was just such a lovely weekend by the sea. It's really by the sea. And yeah, I'm not going to say, and I wrote this on the car on the way back, because we live in the north of Lebanon. So it's kind of like we crossed the entirety of Lebanon, which is nothing. It's a small country, cross it, you know, but then on the way back, I had my phone and I was like, thank you. And it began with thank you, right? So Morning Prayer for Sur, Lebanon, August 2018. Thank you, God of coriander and spicy potato. Thank you, peeling wooden rails. Thank you, God of sea foam. Thank you, red buoy bobbing on the water surface. Thank you, rock island in the distance. Thank you, statue of Our Lady of the Seas. Thank you, harbor. Thank you, Sama on the tomato placenta. Thank you, blackberry jam on the peach flesh. Thank you, fumes of the motorbikes. Thank you, sombrero on the public beach. Thank you, newborn baby in the balcony of your mother's arms. Thank you, fat man with the big cross tanning on the plastic chair. Thank you, drenched clothes of the clotheslines. Thank you, flip-flop girl shouting curses in the alley. Thank you, Mary of the small glass shrine. Thank you, seagulls. Thank you, horizon. You are the goddess. Thank you, cigarette butts. Thank you, broken ship wheel on the seaweed stairs. Thank you, full-lipped cashier. Thank you, God of silicone and hyaluronic acid. Thank you, God of the sun. Thank you, God of the bed sheets. Thank you, supermarket doorway grandma with the braided hair. Thank you, girl behind the phone camera, searching for the God angle of your friend's face. Thank you, hairs of my husband's beard. Thank you, dough of my hips. Thank you, old flag in the wind. I hello you too. Thank you, songs of the colors on the walls, on the doors, on the shutters. Thank you, waves with your ceaseless shh, shh. Thank you, stones of the fortress. What have you seen? What have you seen? Little boat, goodbye. Little world, I love you.
Well, I was going to add one more thank you from myself and everyone. Just thank you. It's such a perfect poem to end the collection with as well. It just continues to open and open. And what I really love about that poem is that it really is like a prayer in the sense that it is absolutely about looking and seeing the world and paying that holy kind of attention. Ooh, there goes my line. Oh, yikes. It's telling me to wrap it up. That kind of holy attention to the world, which is, you know, in so many ways, the very essence of prayer.
Yes, and also the repetition, because I do think that prayer across faith relies on repetition. Right? Yeah. So also the repetition in the thank you, of course.
Yes, while you were reading that, I was thinking like, this is why in so many religions you repeat and you repeat, because it takes you it keeps you going, you know, deeper and deeper into something too.
And even in Sufism, like you repeat the same phrase and then you twirl and you twirl. So there's also circularity and repetition and to reach like a higher dimension, or, you know.
Which is also perfect because I have to say, the title of the book is O. But so there it is. It's so beautiful.
Flaunting the cover. Thank you to Lauren Peters' color. It's a beautiful cover. I love it.
Such a beautiful cover. When I received the book, when I saw the cover, I honestly had a whole conversation with myself about whether or not it was called O, like the letter O, or if it was like the symbol.
Yeah.
That, for lack of a better word, we are calling O, or if it was also, you know, O as in zero. And I had this whole conversation with myself about the title. And when you read Ode to the Afternoon, you mentioned that was the working title of the book, and then it kind of got cut down to the letter O.
Yeah.
Can you can you talk a little bit about how that came to be? And am I reading way too much into?
No, you're not.
Okay.
You're not. You're actually not. So obviously I did not think about all these things the minute I decided to call it O. Again, it was instinctual. It was following a certain like, well, what if we take away O and just keep the O and just stare at it? What do we have, right? And gradually I began to realize that O is a letter, the vowel or a vowel in many of the book's themes, like God and love and home and memory and mother and ode and body and joy and loss, you know. So I was like, oh, but also it's the O of surprise. It's the lyrical O. It's the O of wonder. And also it's the shape itself, right? This circular shape that kind of connotates infinity, but also, is it an opening? Is it inviting you in, right? And I also think it literally exists in our bodies, like through all the orifices in our bodies, we have O's, right? So that everything came together and I was like, no, it has to stay, the O. So yeah, I thought about all these things as well. But after I had the like instinctual idea, like, what if we do this, you know?
Right. I just also, it occurs to me that you're wearing
yes
an O.
Thank you,
on your
Layla,
hand.
who's not here because in Dubai it's 4 a.m.
Yes.
But my friend gifted me this.
It's so
for my
gorgeous.
launch, she gifted me this.
It's gorgeous. It's so gorgeous. Well, I wondered, I want to make sure that I'm not monopolizing the conversation with Zeina. So if anybody has a question to ask in the chat, please type it in. I'd love to hear questions from the audience. I hope that you've been reading through the chat as we've been going, Zeina, because it's like just people like loving every moment of your poems and saying, oh, this is amazing. So you have to take a moment to look at all of that.
Hi, Lubna. Hi, Lena. Lena, my cousin, is here.
Oh.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. There are questions in the Q&A.
Oh, there are questions.
Do you see them below, Carrie? That's why I jumped on.
Oh, I'm so sorry. No, I'm sorry about that. I thought it was in the chat. I am sorry. Oh yes. Okay. So is it Hiba?
Hiba.
Yeah. She asks, could you please elaborate a bit more on what you said about being against romanticizing? Was it meant for the city alone or the entire romantic movement in general? I found that very interesting as well.
Yeah, no, it's not against Wordsworth. So it's not against the romantic movement in general. It's against romanticizing your city, because nostalgia can be beautiful, but it could also be very dangerous because it becomes a lens that is unreal in an annoying way. So that, especially like, you know, I'm Lebanese, I grew up in Lebanon, and then I left Lebanon, I lived 10 years in Dubai, and I just moved to the US. And if I look to Lebanon and only see the beautiful things, romanticizing, saying, oh, how beautiful, the people in Lebanon are going to be like, is she kidding me? You know, and of course I know that because I lived there, so I know both like the beauty and the ugliness of. So that this is what I mean by writing against romanticism. Maybe I meant against nostalgia as well, because you fall into the trap of praising the homeland, and I don't really like that. I like to criticize the homeland more than praise it. So yes, I hope that answers the question.
And another question that's there in the Q&A, Greg says, thank you for this wonderful conversation. And he asks if you could talk about your connection to certain cities and what they mean to you. And I think you kind of, you just did. And I would love to just add on to Greg's question, because it seems like such a big change. I wonder if you could talk about where you're living now. You've just moved to California, and how that has maybe affected your process in writing, and maybe.
So I want to shamelessly plug in an essay that was published today. I think Pierce put it on the chat.
Yeah.
There's an essay that I've been working on for 2 years. I started working on this essay when we first started thinking about leaving Dubai. And the essay is called The Last of the Bougainvillea Years. It's on New Lines online. It's a long read. It's like a 30-minute read, but it details my relationship to all those cities. It details my relationship to Tripoli, to Beirut, to Dubai, and how I imagined. Well, first we were going, what's in this essay is that first we were going to Paris, and then we kind of segued, and it was a very messy 2 years where we did not know where we were going, and then ended up in California. So that I want to invite you to, if you're interested about my relation to these cities, read that. But to kind of sum it up, you know, Tripoli is where I grew up. It's my hometown. It's where my family is. But it's also the city that I wanted to absolutely escape. because it was like it's a city, but it's such a hometown. I wanted to have nothing to do with like people I knew. I wanted to go to Beirut, which is the big city. Whoa, you know, the biggest city on earth back then was Beirut. And then I moved to Beirut to study for my BA and MA, and absolutely fell in love with it. Also, although it's a difficult city, it's a city that demands so much of you. But back then it was a different Beirut. I mean, right now it's changing after the economic collapse and after the Beirut explosion in 2020. It's a completely different reality that I was in. So for me, Beirut was always the ideal city. It's the only city in which I felt almost at home. And then when we got married, Marwan and I, we started moving like many Lebanese people who just want to like make money because the country doesn't allow you to make money. You start moving around the Gulf. So I lived for 2 years in Riyadh and did not like it. And then I lived for 2 years in Bahrain, and it was all a haze in Bahrain. And then I moved for 10 years in Dubai, and Dubai was I think I grew to love it and be attached to it, but at the same time wanted to leave it. Like, I think there comes a time always in my life when I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I don't know why. It's just, I get restless. And now I'm in California and I have no idea what the relationship to this place will be. I love the weather. I love the landscape. It reminds me a little bit of Lebanon. And so that kind of familiarity is nice, but it's also like the farthest place on earth from everyone I love. Oh, my battery's running low. Just a second. Let me plug in. Okay, oh God. Sorry, my battery's running low. This plug isn't working. Okay. I hope I don't cut off. So yeah, I mean, battery's running low. I still have 10%. Okay.
Oh, we're good. We're good.
We're good. So yeah, I think I came to realize that people are our homes first and foremost. People are our homes. I found cities easier to live in when I more easily made friends, for sure. So I hope I make friends in California.
I'm sure you will. So the last question is from your editor and my editor, Ali. Hi, Ali. And she says, Zeina, I'm curious if there are certain emotions or dynamics that you find easier to express in Arabic than in English, or vice versa. And then she says, and do you have a favorite Arabic word for friends?
You know, probably yes. There are things that I find easier to express in Arabic and vice versa. I can't really put my finger on it right now, but like, you know, cultural references. There are cultural references in Arabic, right? That you know, you laugh with an Arab person, and then it happens all the time, because in Dubai we have friends from all different cultures, and we'd be laughing in Arabic about something, and then we'd explain it to English to that third person, and he'd be like, what? No. You know, like, no. Like, if anything, the simplest thing is when you say to your kids "tu'brini" in Arabic, which in English means "may you bury me." Like, imagine going around saying "may you bury me" in English. Like, do you know, like, of course there are untranslatable things in any direction you go, right? Yeah. So yes, absolutely, there are things that are not expressible. And I think poetry itself as an art is about this untranslatability, like, yeah, in general, right? Trying to capture something that you don't completely understand. A favorite word for friend is, I don't know if Ali is referring to the tweet. Are you referring to the tweet, Ali, of the word like friend in Arabic, how it has like, there's so many words for friend in Arabic, and they're, it's about how intense your friendship is. Yes, you are. I'm trying to go back to that tweet, okay? I think I saved it.
That's so wonderfful.
It's
sort of level of intimacy
on Twitter who put it. I mean, off the top of my head, I really think I like the word Rafiq and Sadiq. Maybe Rafiq more than Sadiq, companion, Rafiq, but I'm trying to find, I want to just give you a hint of what Ali's talking about because it's so funny. I will find it, I promise. Just give me 1 second. My God.
And
Twitter.
we have one new question in the Q&A.
Oh,
so.
okay. Yes. Come on, Zeina Hashem Beck. Where is that tweet? Well, you can ask this question as I scroll through my.
Okay. Yes. It's
I found it. So Tirb is a fellow of the same age. Zamil is a colleague. Jaliz is a person with whom you sit around. Samir is a companion in nightly conversation. Nadim is a boon and drinking companion. Sahib is a companion. Rafiq is a close companion, especially in travel, a comrade. Sadiq is a friend. Khil or Khalil is a very close, intimate friend. Anis is a friend whose presence brings you calm and happiness. Najee is a confidant, a bosom friend with whom you commune. Safi is best friend, the chosen one over other friends. And Qareen is a spiritual double or soulmate. All of it's like a pyramid. And the tweet is funny because it says in Arabic, you can friend zone a man in 13 different ways.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So that's what Ali's referring to. I think I'm between Rafiq and Sadiq, probably Rafiq, because it's a Lebanese thing. We say Rafiqi or Rafiqti.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So the last question is from, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I need to put on my glasses. Talat.
Yes.
He says, I feel that through your lyricism, you play on the borders between the poetic and the performative, and asks, how far do you think this properly describes your poetic experience?
Yeah, I think it kind of describes it because I definitely see my poetry as lyrical. And as Carrie was just saying, it's also like I'm always, even as I'm writing it, I'm performing it, I'm reading it out loud. So I guess, yeah, that can be. And I really try to like not describe my own poetry, but I think, yeah, it works.
Yes, I think so too. I think we've been so fortunate to be able to hear you perform a few of these amazing poems from your book. It's been so wonderful.
Sorry we ran late, guys. I'm Arab. We always run late.
And I'm Mexican, so do we. Thank you so much to Pierce at the Brookline Booksmith and everyone at the Brookline Booksmith for having us. And thank you again, Zeina. I don't know if Pierce, if you want to say anything to close, but it's just been such a pleasure. And I'm sure I speak for everyone in the audience when I say thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't have anything more eloquent to say than that. Just thank you so much, the two of you. This has been beautiful and fun and just absolutely thrilling to hear the two of you in conversation. Really a meeting of the minds. I put the link in the chat. We do have copies of the books on our shelves. You can find it at any of your independent local bookstores. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Zeina, and congratulations.
Thanks.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you. Last little words of love in the chat.
Yes, you gotta soak those up, Zeina. I think you can save the chat.
I can send them to you too. I can save them.
Yeah, that would be great.
Absolutely. Good night,
All
everyone.
right. Good night. Thank you so much.
Bye.